In this episode, I interview Chris Tamm and David Tamm. We get into AI integrations, how we apply them in our business today, and what impact and effect AI will have not in 5 years or 10 years, but right now and over the next 12 months. How quickly the industry is moving and how we can stay relevant and stay on top of AI integrations in our business today. Hey, Jeff Cohn here with another episode of the Team Building Podcast, where we interview top team leaders, broker owners, and thought leaders across North America. Very excited today to have Chris and David Tamm on the show with us. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us, Jeff.
Absolutely. It's always fun having two guests. I know with me, I'm probably talking way too much. I'm going to try to be more quiet today. We have some really brilliant individuals in Chris and David, and we have a lot of content that we're going to get into. So let's just get right into it. AI is the buzzword right now. You guys have had tons of projects outside of real estate, I would say for the most part, but also inside of real estate as well. Share a little bit about your background, what you've built up to this point, and then we're going to get into the nitty gritties of how AI actually can be used by us as agents, as leaders, across our platforms so that we can do 10,000 things that we used to only be able to do by ourselves.
Love that. David, do you mind if I take the first piece of it, or do you want to?
Do it up.
Okay. So we've been building our team, building software and businesses for 20, 25 years, and obviously built some software in the real estate space. And the recent years, we've done these AI and automation implementations in pretty much every vertical. So healthcare, cybersecurity, legal, mortgage, insurance, real estate, logistics, manufacturing, recruiting. And it's been fascinating because you see the tools moving and changing, but a lot of what's changing organizations right now, and this is the biggest change that we've seen in organizational management and business management in generations. And so not to kind of overspeak as far as how things are changing, but they're changing how they run their businesses, how they accomplish their tasks. And it's affected more, I would say, small and medium-sized business more recently because of the price point, how it can use these tools. But I would say very unique vantage point that we've had walking alongside the executives, the C-levels, the boards, the private equity in these projects and seeing the good and the bad implementations. And maybe just one little other piece to throw there is that some people think it's just about the tools. We find that that's probably a third of success. The other 2/3 of success of these tools is the human element and the guardrails. How do we use it? Where do we use it? How do we build it? And so that to me it's great because it's the art form and how we think of the human condition that leads to the best improvements and the biggest wins for people, not just having a cool piece of technology.
Perfectly said. I know a lot of people are worried their jobs are at risk. And I remember when the computer and the World Wide Web, kind of hit big, let's say late 90s. I graduated in 2000. So I didn't have a cell phone until literally my senior year of college. I don't think I had a laptop till college either. We had a dial-up computer when I was in middle school. And then I think my dad, if I got his first laptop when I was in high school. Anyways, people said computers would replace people, but they didn't. They just made people better. And I have a feeling, and you had asked me this off air, I have a feeling AI is going to be similar. If you're not adapting with AI, your position could be eliminated, but somebody else that knows how to use AI is going to replace you. It's not going to replace everyone, right?
Yeah. And there's a story about, what was it? A study of Goldman Sachs did a study of the effect of artificial intelligence on the world workforce. And most people said it like a scare story, like 300 million jobs are going away, another 500 million jobs right behind it. But in this 26-page report, there's this little chart that says something totally different. And it talks about the changing workforce. And it shows that like 60% of positions, up to 40% of their role could be automated if you did everything that we can figure out today. And again, it's an assumption. And that's kind of what we see. We see 20 to 60% efficiencies when you really step back and holistically rebuild a role. And in that, most people have 40% of their job they don't love anyway. And so it's not about taking the stuff away, but we can really give people choice. What do you love doing? And leverage the stuff away that you don't love doing. And you get this enjoyment, the excitement, the acceleration. So I agree with that. I also think we have to take an active role in making it that, because we've never had tools that were really this powerful. So I think there's a lot more nuance in it.
Sure. And being in the real estate space, which I know all three of us are and have played in a big way, I think about team leaders, broker owners of both real estate companies, mortgage companies, insurance companies, title companies. What is the biggest thing agents don't want to do? Ironically or coincidentally, it also is the thing that they should be doing. 80% of our time should be prospecting, 20% servicing if you're in an active role as an agent. Most agents aren't wanting to make the call. They're not wanting to send the text. They're not wanting to send the email. They're not wanting to respond after hours. And I believe AI can do it all. So maybe speak to that a little bit. If you are listening and you're like, well, how could it do it for me? I would love for you guys to share with the audience some of the tech that's out there now and what you believe is coming.
Chris, that's all you. I love listening to you talk. This is an easy podcast.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. Okay. I'll work on this. Just jump in and shut me up. So what we see, there's an interesting mixture here between AI doing it all and then people, the consumer, usually not wanting to think they're talking to a human and finding out they're talking to something automated. And so what we've seen throughout these implementations is that on one side, there's great places to use AI. Like we use AI to make and take up to 45-minute sales phone calls, do interviews, not to replace humans, but if you called me and I couldn't answer the phone, do you want to talk to a dumb voicemail or something that can really get your answer, help me get you a quicker answer faster and a better support system? So not human replacement, but augmentation in a positive way. On the other side, when it comes to messaging, like in the past, we did a lot of what we call synthetic video, where it's I record a video and then the AI goes in and changes my face and my voice to replace your name and where we met and what the next thing we need to talk about is. So I'm sending a personal video to thousands or tens of thousands of people. The tricky part with that is that can give leverage, but is that really what the consumer wants to see? And to one of the things that you said is, do we have to disclose that? Well, in some countries, yes. In some countries, no. And as you said, there's lots of privacy laws that are coming because as we adjust to how these things work and disclosure, like right now, YouTube, you have to now disclose if you upload a video and use AI generated or edited content, or they can delist your entire account, all your SEO, all the things you've gotten from it. So we're starting to see the seeds of that starting to come out. The second piece of that is when we talk, like one of our biggest implementations, I'd say most common implementations across all types of organizations and positions is a suggestive messaging system where you can still have humans in control, but a system will go through and say, hey, I already looked at all your database. I know all your data. Here's the 100 people I think you should follow up with today. And here's why. They clicked on something, did something. Here's what we think you should say. Then a human very quickly goes through and says, that sounds great. That sounds awesome. That one's good. I'm going to retype that one. And they can go through hundreds or thousands in an hour and still have personal controlled communication. So I think what we've seen is this kind of human fusion of where do we use the tools to give us leverage. The piece with that is we use him and her. Like we are always developing with where's the human in the middle or what is the human enhanced response. And those are the architectures that say it's not really an AI. It's really fancy tools that are giving us leverage, but we're still in control.
I like that a lot. I know people will say that it can send a text or an email with the voice of Jeff, David, or Chris, but it can literally take our voice. I think there's tools within 15 seconds. It can use your actual voice, and you had mentioned your avatar. I always envision like a bobblehead that's like an animated avatar. It can actually have you talk. You can speak for a minute on video, and then it can have your voice and your face, and it could then say anything. So to your point, I like the idea of the consumer choosing, I want the AI Chris or I want Chris, because oftentimes people don't want the Jeff Cohn. Like they don't want, they're worried to call me and bug me. They might choose the AI Jeff Cohn instead, as long as they can get the same answer or a similar answer. And one case study I've seen is I could take my 500 hours of recorded podcast episodes and someone could go into my Jeff Cohn AI avatar and ask it questions, and it would answer them based on what I've said, right, as a totality on all of the previous shows combined. It'll make a decision what it thinks is the best answer. Does that exist today? Do you know anyone actually using this?
Oh, yeah.
And could you point us, our audience, somewhere where they could go check it out?
So we very much, so we've built those projects for people. We've done stuff. David has an entire, I would say, can I say a little few words about it?
Go for it. Yes, it's Jeff.
So David's world for the last years has been in people duplication with AI. And that's a very complicated, it's not as simple. It can be as simple as just load in something and it can answer from it. That's super easy to do today. But the idea of like an emotional control and how you think about different subjects and not just what did you say on your podcast, but what have other people said? What are your opinions? And does it understand your opinions around key subjects so it could actually come up with an idea around something you haven't exactly said before? And so there's a difference between kind of repeat the past or infer about the future from how we set that up. But it is very possible. Some people will say the idea that AI, and again, whatever we call AI, there's even disagreement about the term itself, but AI won't be able to do that. I personally disagree with that. I think AI or these tools, you can put it together to almost duplicate who a human is and what we do. But the question goes to, should we? Is that really what we're looking for? And I think the next stage of our growth, at least what we're seeing, maybe here's a quick story. Cornell University did a study on efficiencies and human efficiencies. And in the corporate world, a 5% efficiency is mind boggling. That normally takes 10 years to figure out, like all the updates to the software and how we work. And Cornell University and Google just cited the study, said that these tools right now, like ChatGPT and just the ones off the shelf, can take 10% of our tasks and make them 50% faster. So 5% efficiency overnight. So for most organizational leaders, that's mind-boggling. But Google didn't quote the rest of the study that said, if you're willing to do a little bit of custom tooling and think for yourself on this and figure out what do you want to do before you wait for that product to get rolled out from that person or that company, then today that jumps to 47 to 56% of all tasks that can get 50% faster.
Wow.
Like 23 to 28% efficiency overnight. That's like 50 years of advancements all crammed into right now. It's all possible. And then the stuff that's bleeding edge that most people haven't done, or stuff that we can't talk about or that nobody really wants to talk about, that stuff can be even more than that. And so with where we're going and how we're thinking about it, there's a place for waiting for that product to be able to use it and get the efficiency. But there's also, these are new tools. And if you find a way or you think of a way to use them, you can have tremendous efficiencies that other people haven't thought of yet.
Yeah, I love it. Even on this recording where we use Zoom and I have my Fathom AI chat bot on. If you guys aren't using, that's a very simple give for this episode. It's under apps on the bottom bar of your Zoom. It's free. It has unlimited cloud storage, and it'll make notes of your call. It'll tell you if you're talking too much, which I'm always talking too much. It'll say monologue, stop talking. It'll answer like if you have someone asks a question and someone answers it, it'll have a section of questions that were answered. You can create tasks. You can create little mini clips for like presentations that other people watch in the future. You can rewatch the recording, obviously, like a 2X. It does a really good job, and that's an AI tool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where do you see as an application to residential real estate or mortgage lenders, insurance agents, where have you seen and do you see this going? I mean, the big question agents are going to ask is could this replace an agent eventually? And you should know the answer. I mean, think of all the tasks an agent does. Is AI going to replace the agent, or is it going to help the agent get to the masses a lot easier?
I mean, obviously opinion on this. I think when it comes to human replacement in any position or any profession, whether it's like radiology, real estate, legal, I mean, all of these different things, even manufacturing and rocket science, they're all adjusting right now. And so we're going to see 40 to 90% improvements. We're all going to adjust what our jobs are and what we do. But most people want to buy and sell from people, belly to belly. We watch podcasts, or we listen to podcasts because of the person, the opinion. That's what really attracts us. And what you've seen, there are some studies on this, and again, just little maybe nuggets here. There's a study that Harvard did on AI generated content. And this is not ChatGPT generated content, but deep generated content. And people overwhelmingly preferred the AI generated content because of the control, the rigor, what you could actually do with it. But as soon as you told them that you made it not a blind test, you told them which content was which, then people overwhelmingly preferred the human content. But in the blind test, they preferred the AI content. And so it kind of shows the idea we want to buy from people. And so as we can leverage the pieces in the busy work away, like in one of the positions that we helped automate, 60% of their work used to be typing in notes, hunting and pecking, looking through systems, and they didn't enjoy that piece. And now that piece is gone because the systems run themselves, tell them what needs to happen. They're in control of all of it. Now they're 80% belly to belly, which is what they really enjoyed doing, was teaching and being with people and really serving. And so as we kind of look at the replacement, I think that's going to be our choice. If we frequent the vendors that remove people, that's going to show where the markets should go. And so I think I like working with people. I don't want to just work with robots, but I think those can make us a lot faster. And then some of the other tools as far as that people can use right now, I mean, there are like the self-staging tools. Like even if you pick on Redfin had their AI self-staging tool where consumers or agents can go to a property and just say, hey, I want to see this in the property or see something different. So the speed that we can help our clients dream to see something different, that materially affected me in my recent home search and purchase. Not Redfin's tool, but the fact that I could just go do that through ChatGPT and upload a picture and see different things. And then you have things like, I'll pick on my prop pal. Mark Leslewing was the CTO of NAR for 20 years. And he and James Wang and their team worked on something where you can just take some pictures or a video, and 10 seconds later, it's done all the data entry for all the fields in the MLS. It's done the property descriptions. It's pulled in public information. But then it does the human in the middle, passes it back to a human for a few seconds to change what they want to. And then they just click a button, say push to MLS, and it shows up in the MLS. And so the ideas of the chances for data entry, the things that we force people to do, a lot of those can materially change. Now, somebody that lists 100 homes a year or 2 homes a year, they're going to save different amounts of time. But again, we're giving people back their time and energy to stuff that really takes their nuance, not clicking and doing data entry in 600 different fields.
I love it. Who do you see leading the charge right now? And this is not an infomercial for those listening. I have no idea what his answer is going to be, but who do you see in the residential real estate space today, and or mortgage companies that are, more consumer direct, or an insurance company consumer direct? Who is leading the charge as it pertains to AI efficiencies?
That's an interesting one. So there's probably, just speak out of both sides of my mouth here. On one side, when it comes to AI efficiencies, a lot of times those aren't talked about. And so those are the efficiencies inside the billing department or the contract department or the auditing or the commission department or the showings or follow-up, or the efficiency you can get in all these different micro areas versus just one product. And a lot of times those aren't talked about. The things that we've seen as far as maybe people leading the pack that I would say are more public and they're talking about what they're doing, but maybe they're not noticed for it. I do think James Wang and Mark Lestwing and their team at My Prop Pal, just because of what they've put together and how they put it together, that they have proprietary data, they have speed, and they have the ability to kind of create custom solutions for MLSs, associations. Another one would be Triangle MLS. Matt Fowler, he's I would say one of the most AI forward, but the way he communicates with the members of the MLS and draws them into what the story is and where they're going. And he's been talking about this on stage and helping people understand more how this can really help them, kind of like what you're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see the technology companies. For me, the technology companies are kind of rolling out these little tiny plugins. To me, that's not moving the needle in a huge way. Like giving somebody the ability to access ChatGPT in their CRM, okay, it saved me one click, but that didn't change my world. And so the other ones I think are some of the operators. These are tougher to talk about because I don't want to necessarily share what they're doing because it's for their business. But the people that are getting creative and saying, hey, I want to fix this before I wait for some software company to roll out something and now it's not a competitive advantage, they're leaning in themselves. And then the other piece, like I would say, even some teams and organizations that are saying, hey, here's the 10 tools that we're using. Even that, when somebody can start adjusting to themselves, because like I might say, here's my 10 tools. One of the biggest improvements that we're seeing is when, let's say, I go teach my organization, here's all the tools that you can use. Each person's going to pick different ones because some people love contracts, some people love follow-up. And so they use the tools to take care of the things they don't love and they get more emotional acceleration.
Yep. I love it. I know agents from an agent adoption standpoint, I think I've heard before, the typical brokerage would be excited if they could adopt 10% of their agents into any new product that rolls out. But when it becomes like a standard conversation around people who do lead conversion, which should be all of us if we're in an active role of sales or teaching people sales, if everyone's saying, I increased my efficiencies by 56%, that means I made half the calls, right? And got the same result. That's going to be a game changer. Everyone's going to want to do it. And I think there will be products that, like, if you're not doing it, you're out of the game, right?
Yeah. And I think that's kind of if you wait for it to be rolled out from a software company and marketed to everybody, at that point, it's not really a competitive advantage. It's kind of table stakes because it's available to everybody. And then there's going to be competition, prices go down. And so you get this window today where you get tremendous efficiencies before that all gets built. One of those weird questions that's kind of hanging out there sometimes is, I had a macroeconomist explain one time that part of the idea of capitalism is that we're, in a sense, we get to get compensated for capitalizing on efficiencies and for doing things better and serving people better. And that weird question of what happens someday if all the efficiencies are capitalized on. Again, I think it'll still go back to relationship and how do we want to buy and sell. But we're at kind of that weird point where if you can dream it, you kind of can build it now.
Yeah. What do you think about, Chris, just with your brilliant mind? And obviously, I think you're leading a lot of conversations today. When you get free time to think, what do you like to spend your time on? I know that's probably a weird question that you probably haven't gotten a lot, but
Don't answer that.
David's sitting here on the edge of his chair going, oh my goodness. But seriously, like,
don't answer it.
When you're alone and you have time, it's fun to think. And I've spent a lot of time I like thinking about Teslas and self-driving and how like parking lots will be obsolete if cars are dropping us off and then going home to charge. Like, why are there parking lots? There's a lot of real estate that's not going to be needed once all the cars can self-drive. It's like, what's the stuff you're nerding out on?
The stuff I'm nerding out on is, this goes pretty out there. It's esoteric, but our whole world is we help like business and organization leaders go through 3 stages of change. And like the first stage is, how do you think about your world differently with these tools? And it's kind of like boil the frog. You got to do it slowly. People have to adjust. You can't just cram this on them. And then stage 2, they really start stepping back and saying, well, we don't even need a lot of this stuff anymore. This was the old way of doing things. This was Excel spreadsheets and stone tablets, and there's a new way of doing it. And then the third one, which is it's pretty far out there, and we have some organizations that get there, is just a different way of thinking, like holistically, because this changes what executives do, what managers are even used for. Do you even need managers? Like it really, when systems can help start supporting people instead of managers supporting them. And so the wholesale changes where I like to spend my time. And that's just a different way of looking at it from our standpoint, but it also leads to the tools that we develop. Because somebody says like, hey, we have this process that we spend 3 days doing this thing. Well, that's not really needed anymore. The entire process isn't needed. And a lot of times people are so focused on get that 10 or 20% efficiency, they're building 10% faster horses all the time. And really stepping back and saying, do we really need horses anymore? Do you really even need those types of systems anymore? Because we can think differently. We can really move differently. I love the parking lot example. And then we get to spend time with a lot of really, I would say, cool, creative, driven people that are just passionate about changing the world, whether it's medical or cyber or manufacturing, logistics. We have this lady that's just amazing for the last 20 years in like space and quantum. And we just get to spend time with cool people and kind of figure out what can we do to help the human condition. Not that we would have a dent on it. I think that's probably a little bit too big of ego with, but yeah, how can we serve and make sure people keep that at the focus? So long answer, it's these weird, crazy projects that get brought up that are really hard and our team gets to jump in and spend time on. David, I dodged a lot there. What would you?
You're fine. You're fine.
I think you did a great job. Honestly, we're both giant nerds and we love AI and automation for, as a side project. What Chris mentioned earlier is, we're using it for emulation of our loved ones, right? So that we can actually have an interactive conversation with one of our loved ones after they're dead. Their face, their voice, just like you were saying, you could load up an avatar of yourself. You mentioned bobblehead, right? Of all of your emails for 20 years, all of your recorded phone calls, all of your CRM data can ingest that and become this intelligent assistant emulation tool. Like to me, that just tugs on my heartstrings. Not only that, but it frees up the CEO's time. It can better leverage ourselves. And then if you one day get hit by a bus, well, we have that as a backup. But, Chris, to circle back on what you were talking about, what I've seen and what's super exciting for me is these efficiencies. It's seeing these CEOs with stars in their eyes now, understanding that, we can completely rebuild our business model. It's turning the entire business models on their head when you can wake up in 30 or 60 or 90 days or whatever the timeline is and say, we just saved 80% of our SG&A nationwide for this entire thing that we've been doing, with stone tablets. It's essentially taking these old problems that we've been doing for 10, 20, 30 years and just applying new technology. So yeah, Chris, I think that was a great answer. You didn't dodge anything.
You guys have seen the scene in The Matrix where Keanu Reeves' character can download everything, right? I know Kung Fu. It's an interesting comment, Chris, that's messing up my brain as you've talked this entire episode, where you said that it can go from ones and zeros to creating twos or threes in that it can give its opinion. I've never heard of anyone talking about AI. I still thought about it as a calculator. 1 + 1 is 2. I never thought it could spit out an opinion. I just thought it would give you a fact based on what it guessed was the fact that Jeff would say. And then I started thinking about putting Jeff's AI avatar in this interview with Chris's AI avatar and just having them have a conversation and sit on the side and watch it. Where I'm going with that in my mind is then thinking it might take me an hour or a day or a week to solve a problem. It'd be really interesting for me to ask my own AI avatar to solve the problem for me and see what it comes up with. And then I go, I agree. And within a minute, I've solved the problem that I was going to solve after a week, but it just did it for me. And then it's like, am I even making decisions anymore? Am I going to let my subconscious AI version make decisions? And things start getting really wild at that point.
So that comment, we've done some really fun society talks. And there's this some really cool theorists. There's this one guy, David Shapiro. He's an AI theorist. Fascinating how a lot of these people's minds work. But when you think about the last, say, 50 years of what we know about psychology, physiology, and kind of what we learned about the brain, two quick things there. We think we know a lot, but if somebody hasn't been following AI and advancements very closely in the last couple of years, one piece is that up until a couple of years ago, all of humanity, we understood 40,000 materials. Now, not crystalline structures, there's millions of those. And like Google DeepMind in the last couple of years has uncovered 360,000 new materials we didn't know existed. So 90% of our physical world we learned about in the last couple of years. And just the idea was, hey, if somebody hasn't read this, I love this book, Lifespan, David A. Sinclair, Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to. There's a lot of people that think like World Health Organization recently reclassified aging as a disease. So a lot of people think we don't actually have to age. Like you can reverse mice, their age right now, and lots of weird things happen. So when it comes to all of that with where we're going, and so I'll get lost down rabbit trails all the time.
It's okay.
But We're in a very interesting space. And when you put guardrails around these things, like when you go to make a decision, what's happening subconsciously, your emotions are feeding you, processing tons of information, feeding you back to emotion, then our logic fills in. If you go to that AI and say, hey, help me with this decision and give me 100 pros and 100 cons based on everything you know about me, everything I've ever read, everything. Like if you think about the new Microsoft PC, this is a weird one, but it takes screenshots of everything you do while you work every 5 seconds and remembers everything you've done so that it knows everything you've done and you can talk to it. And so in a sense, if it has information, everything you've ever searched for, and you say, give me 100 pros and cons, now my logic mind gets to understand what my subconscious was actually going through and feeding me back, usually through emotion. And so I get to look at that and maybe make a different decision. And so it's a very interesting, that's a lot of time what we go to therapy for, which is help me understand why I made this decision. And in a sense, it can help pull apart things. Now, how the systems are built and human coding and all that is super nuanced, but we've seen truly creative systems. And if you took that Jeff Cohn coach now and made it from passive to active and now said, hey, every morning, message Chris Tamm and remember everything about the conversation and guide him through all of his goals and his growth. There's a company, not really a company, but there's a Yale project that we sponsor as a company. It's called the Founder Series, and it's an AI coach for business owners. 60 business schools work together, and you can just go and talk to it, and it'll help you with almost anything in business, grow, introduce people, vendors. That's a passive system, so you can talk to it and do whatever you want. But if you turn that active and said, hey, message me once or twice a day, ask me what I need, give me some ideas, look at all my data, help make recommendations, things change quite a bit. And that's kind of what I think it's the boil the frog. We all have to adjust for how these things can work. But like you said, that's a huge change from how we thought about things in the past.
I was on a call recently, and the gentleman I was speaking with was speaking. I have to admit, with my ego intact, I will say he was speaking above my level. And I joked with him that it would be so nice if while he spoke, there was a video that was just like emulating the things he was saying. Like if there was an AI chat bot that created a video so I could like see all the things he was saying, it would show me, like if he was giving a mathematical problem, for example, it would show the mathematical problem. If you talk about the nuclear bomb, you'd see a picture of a bomb. It'd be neat to have a platform. It's kind of like the imagery, kind of like what you're saying with the pictures. That's what made me think of it when you said it takes a picture every 5 seconds. It'd be really nice. There's a lot of conversations, even the one we're having right now, when you reference the book, for example, it could then populate an image of the book. And I think it'd make communicating a lot better because you'd have a visual that went along with the words. But I haven't seen a platform like that yet.
They're working on that right now in elementary schools, actually, for the different types of learners. They're applying AI. Are you a kinesthetic learner? Then the AI can then say, okay, this is being taught in a lesson in this book. Here's a kinesthetic way to implement that. Ooh. And then give that to the teacher as an example, reactive. And then if the child doesn't react well to that, hey, give me 7 other ways that I can. And it is truly, Chris, you used the term solving the blank page problem. Like that's really what it is at the end of the day when we're talking about real estate team leaders, brokers, owners. That's 90% of the job. Where do I start? Where do I do? We can leverage AI for that.
David and I were talking this morning, sorry, Chris, about the DISC test, which is any personality test, there's 4 traits. And usually you have one as a dominant, one as a secondary, and then usually you're really low in the other 2, no matter who you are. I said something about how cool it'd be if you had a website that could react, or an app that could react to your personality type, and it would know it because it either knows you because you're on social media and it's already told, you already know what it is, or someone that's more self-aware, like I'm a DI on the DISC, 99D, 99I, I could just have that as part of my profile, and then it will only serve me up DI content. Everything should be that way. And so it's so shocking to me if I go to ESPN.com, I'm getting ESPN.com, same version that you're getting. It's all the same. The imagery is the same. The copy is the same. Why it should be different for all of us, similar to like Social Dilemma, how they talk about your social media experience is just validating what you think and serving up content that you wanted. I think websites should do that more, to be honest.
So I think maybe some opinion on that really quick. Also, really, David, an opinion on one of the things that you said. And part of this is just to argue because I like it. But there's Adam Grant, social psychologist. He had a recent book, Hidden Potential. And he pulled out the studies on how, for all the schools that have tracked learning styles and how they were taught and proficiency rates and what happens in other countries, like the countries that are leading the world in schooling, is they basically now have disproved the idea of learning styles, that it's an area that we use as a crutch. And what they actually say is that the biggest thing, if you go back to the SCARF model, which is a psychology interpretation of the amygdala response and fight or flight and teaching and all the studies that go with it, fascinating paper. Now, they show the same thing. That's more about the emotional state of the person and emotional excitement that drives learning and synapse building and all of that than learning style at all, which is why they're showing that 90-year-olds can learn almost as fast as a 10-year-old if they're in the right space and they've kind of tuned their brain the right way. So just debate there. On the other one, the idea of like dynamic content, we're entering kind of this day and age where we're seeing like in MBA schools, there's this old book that's taught. It's called The One-to-One Future. It's super interesting. It talks about like hyper personalization, what that does. And on one side, you could have content from a website. There's 4 versions of it that are built for high D&I, an S, or a C. Or is it really writing itself based on what you do on the website? So like the idea of these AI interactive forms that we see now and interactive experiences where it shows you a message that says, hey, what do you want to see? And as you're going through it, it's actually building the content for you based on the business guardrails. So you might see something that 10,000 other people will never see. Whereas when it's disk, it might just be one of 4 versions. So it's like micro automation versus true personalization. Like what if the website, the Jeff Cohn AI was building the website for every single person that came to it based on the conversation with Jeff and that experience, which doesn't just have to be audio, like the multimodal now for designers, it's getting really creative and weird, but things can self-design themselves. They can talk, doesn't have to all be static anymore.
Yeah, that's mind blowing. That's awesome. That'll be awesome.
And this is old school, Chris. We were dealing with this 5 years ago when we were building.
10 years ago, yeah.
Well, when somebody visits the website based on their
changes,
yeah, it's raining on the website because it's raining in your environment. You know what I mean? And then it can be totally reactive based off of whatever parameters, Chris. I think that's really, really cool.
And there's some, like privacy is going to be a huge thing. Like right now in Europe, it's not legal for commercial systems to diagnose human emotion, whereas in the US, that's free reign. And so even some of those things, as we think about what's possible, where does it go, what should be ours and not kind of known or run by a system, a lot of that stuff will change with privacy laws. But even the idea of like third-party data, like there are these systems now where if you come to my website and you don't click anything or submit anything, it sends me your email address. Because of all this third-party data and all these things going around. So if right away, then I run that through one of these third-party searches and start targeting you based on all this information about you, super creepy, hyper-personalized. I think at the end of the day, though, it still comes back to relationship. You can say all these fancy things or have all these widgets, but if you trust me or don't trust me, I mean, that's where we're going to do business or not do business together.
Yeah, I think, and as the 3 of us, I would consider our influencers in our own right. I think that influencers are going to win. Anyone listening, you're an influencer of your database. A good friend of mine, Matt Johnson, wrote the book Micro Famous. He talks about how you become famous in your own little niche, and the riches are in the niches. So if you can take advantage of a system like AI and then communicate to the people that already know you, like you, trust you, what I think is going to happen is people are going to buy your data but ask for your avatar. So they're going to say, Jeff, you have a huge following. We want to buy your database, but we want your face. We want to be able to use your face, your avatar, to go into my database and sell my products. That's the future. And that's the biggest disconnect. And I agree 100%, Chris, that it's all personal. It's using that personal face. And look at media. It's been doing that forever, right? You use athletes, you use celebrities to push products. It's not because they like those products. They make a ton of money. Michael Jordan, Air Jordan, we buy because we like Michael Jordan. We want to be like him when we grow up. We want to jump like him. We want to have the success he has. And so we buy a shoe. Well, there's people that want to be Chris Tamm. There's people that want to be David. There's people that want to be Jeff. There's people that want to use our product because they know us, like us, and trust us. So I'll be excited to see kind of where that evolution takes place.
Yeah. How does, maybe one other question there, this goes down maybe that weird rabbit hole. How does that change the day the tools are at the place where Jeff or Chris or David or any of our kids or relatives could go and just say, I want to do a business in this, go create me a website, do LinkedIn search, find the 10,000 people, start marketing it to them, write all the content, book all the calls for me, have my AI avatar do the first 15 minutes, then transfer the call to me and I'll jump on, write the script. When things do become that easy, because we're seeing how the advancements goes, where do things go?
Well, I think you just nailed it. I think everyone can do it by pushing the easy button. It's like if you had 100 lemonade stands, whose lemonade stand would you stop at in your neighborhood? You'd stop at the kids' lemonade stand who you knew their parents, or they're the ones that live next door to you. You wouldn't stop at any lemonade stand. And we have this right now with everything that's being sold to us. We're inundated with texts and emails and voicemails and everyone telling us they can solve all of our problems. We don't even look at what the solution is. We don't even know if we have the problem yet. And so they're trying to tell us we have a problem. If someone I care about says, Jeff, you have a problem, then I'll be like, okay, what is it? How am I going to solve it? What's it going to cost me? So I think that they're going to win based on their ability to get those people to know, like, and trust them, which which is why today more than ever, if you look at real estate practitioners, everyone's fighting for space on social media. Everyone thinks that that's where they're going to win because that's where they can be known. But if no one already knows you, I don't think you're winning on social media. It's when you're known and then you have a product that you can sell or monetize that you can win. So I think people are going to I think it's going to be belly to belly again, like getting mastermind groups, getting in-person events, trying to be in front of people, and then plugging them into all your AI strategies. What are your thoughts?
That's cool.
I think it's both.
I want to hear David. Yeah.
I personally, I'm in love with marketing. It's what I want to do for the rest of my life, in addition to AI and automation and all these things. But I think it's both. I think I've seen small shops, solopreneurs leverage really interesting AI automation solutions who didn't have a large following and just really explode because they're able to accomplish 14,000 tasks of messages and phone calls and reviews that a solopreneur can never do. But I've got an army of AI assistants behind me that have, it's like having a staff. Oh, but I don't have all the overhead, right? So it's a win from day one. I've also seen, the established, we're either stagnating or not growing at the pace that we want. And we just leverage our data mine that we already have, leveraging these AI and automation tools, giving new experiences, new content, all tailored at a better pace for a lower cost. Again, like when you're saying, we can just flip a switch and in 90 days reduce cost, SG&A, whatever that is, by 20 to 60%. Like that is the easy button solution, but then it challenges you, Jeff, to go back to the drawing board. Well, what do I now do with all this time and all this money? You can literally restructure your entire business model. And we're seeing that today.
David, what I just thought of as you spoke this will be when I believe AI has made it, is you no longer will pay for a platform. You won't pay to build. They're going to come to you and they're going to say, hey, let me have access to your database to provide you the service I provide. And I'm going to get a percentage of profit. And it could be a big one. If you're going to increase my numbers by, let's say, the 56%, which that's just efficiencies. Let's say you're going to double my sales revenue next year. You should get to keep 40% of it, 30% of it. Just like a consulting firm might come in with an upfront fee and then a percentage of growth beyond what your best year ever was. I don't know of a realtor in America, a mortgage company, an insurance company that wouldn't say, yes, plug your thing in and I'll let you keep over X if it's more than I've ever made in the past. That's when you'll know someone won. And right now I'll say, I'll do that deal right now with you guys. I'll do that deal with anyone. If they come to my 400,000 person database in Omaha, Nebraska, where there's only 120,000 domiciles, 330,000 people registered that live here. I have more people than there are people. I have more people in my database than there are people here. If someone can come in and use AI tools and be able to highlight more leads than anybody else, why not do a rev share model? I'm surprised that more of that doesn't exist. I'm sure you guys have seen it. I haven't been pitched that yet.
David, do you want to commit to it here?
Jeff,
let's do it live on the podcast.
I mean, listen, I
build it on the podcast.
Well, that's the interesting part is we come up with these solutions and ideas based off of the actual tactical conversations of how these tools are being used. Because to be totally frank, whenever you hear most real estate professionals talk about AI, it's, I got a $9 plugin. I'm an AI company now. Opposed to, hey, we actually can build this technology into your systems right in or on top of if you want. And then that's part of your business. That goes on your financials, and that's part of, the IP conversation. So yeah, I'm down. Let's totally do something fun like that.
Wow. Put it on the napkin. Let's go. Well, this has been awesome. And I know not all of this is applicable for everyone listening, but it's sharing, I think, ideas and thought processes where the mind should be going and where the industry is going. Chris or David, I would love to hear you speak as we close this out to how fast this is going to go. I know we've advanced. I think about the Tesla tech with the self-driving. For whatever it took to get to here, someone told me recently in the next 3 months, it'll be twice as smart. And then in 1 month, it'll be twice as smart. Like it's going so fast right now and AI is doing the same. I mean, it is AI on the Tesla platform. So where do you see, is this a year from now, things are going to be wild, like just insane? How fast do you feel like this is going to continue?
You mind if I take that, David?
And then I'll take it afterwards.
Okay. Maybe a couple opinions. I would say one, I'd rather say jury is out, but from the things that we know that are happening, some people have said 2030 for AGI, artificial general intelligence, faster than all of us all at the same time. I heard somebody say 2027 this morning with some pretty good arguments for it. I've seen some working models that are slow because there's so many things that interact, but self-learn ideas, all those things. So I think it's close. If you think of like ITR Economics and some of these other big economic forecasters, they're predicting kind of like world recession 2029, 2030. You combine those two together. I think we have a lot of change coming up, which is where we have a lot of ownership in how we use these tools and really understanding it now to have years to work with it before any of this stuff potentially hits. But I think we're there. I think this is, again, biggest change potentially in human history, the way that we see it, as far as our self-worth, what we do for work, how we distribute work, what we do with our time, and even how we distribute resources, haves and have-nots, and things that obviously are very charged to talk about. But I think we're there. Even if I think we're potentially already there, but the changes are speeding up on the back end, which means I think businesses will see it first, consumers will see it second. But we're seeing just huge changes on the back end of things.
I totally agree. I have never seen, and this isn't just to like generate buzz and excitement, but I have never seen a technology accelerate this fast in my entire life. And I'm a former combat Air Force officer. We've done a bunch of tech companies, and it's really crazy when you can look a CEO or a business owner in the eyes and say, if you could wave a magic wand and all the things that your entire staff and you don't like doing today, we could automate with artificial intelligence and AI and bring down those costs and improve those efficiencies. Like, those are tangible things today, agnostic of vertical in industry. Right. So it's not only today, it's being used today.
David,
and then go ahead. What do you got?
Not to change the line of thinking, but did you see there's a Netflix AI documentary within the last year, and they had fighter pilots. It might have been out of Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
The number one fighter pilot in America, supposedly fighting against an AI pilot in a sim. And the AI pilot destroyed time and time again. And they discovered, did you watch this?
I did.
They discovered that it won because it was willing to do really high risk maneuvers. And instead of attacking from the back, like what you see in the movie Top Gun, it attacked from the front. And it wasn't scared to risk itself. And it knew statistically it could make the attack and bug out. I thought that was amazing.
And you know how that sim AI was trained? It looked at every air-to-air and air-to-ground engagement in the history of American Air Force combat power, and then mapped it all and said, oh, I know the kinematics and exactly how many Gs and what those missiles can do. And it's just a computer game at that point. Oh, by the way, it can run it 10 million times in the background while you're sleeping. And so it can't mess up unless somebody messes it up with guardrails or interjects with human and says, red button, no, don't do that.
And then I remember the big conversation was AI making the decision to kill on the battlefield, and at what point should you empower it to do that? Which led me to my last question. Guys, we could go forever. I love this conversation. So fun. So thank you so much. We'll give your credentials at the end so people can reach out and thank your AI avatar for you guys coming on today. Where are the controls? Who's responsible for the controls, and how much will eventually the government / military allow us to have access to? And at what point will they just say, hey, you can't have the next version. It's too insane what it's capable of. I'm assuming there's a lot of that happening already that the average layman doesn't know. But how is this controlled and managed? I have no idea. So I'm sure you guys have an idea how that's all working.
You know, there's programs right now that civilians will never be able to access. That's just a matter of fact. And there's technology that we don't want in civilians' hands because they're not trained for it and they don't know how to utilize it. On the business and commercial side, Chris, you want to speak to that as far as guardrails and controls?
Yeah, I think that they're mixed. There's lots of regulation proposed. Some of it, I think, is protectionist, where it's more about protecting certain pieces of industry or players. I think one of the day and age of today, when I can go buy a $30 TPU, like a tensor processing unit, or I can download these models onto my computer and own them and use them myself, regulation will affect things. And it is coming down the pike, I think. There's this question of should my 15-year-old be able to go and say, here's the chemicals in my house, how do I hurt somebody? I don't think so. It doesn't have a PhD in chemistry, but those models exist. To the entire other side of, now that it's open source and people can use it, even if the government were to disallow it, there's a lot of people that already have it. So it's not unseeable now. And so it's kind of the future that will happen regardless, and the future that will be condoned. But I think AI is about to become very politicized as a tool. Now, you didn't see a calculator politicized, and you didn't see necessarily the internet politicized, but I think AI is going to be very heavily politicized because of what it can do. Like even the idea that today, and maybe I'll leave it at this, that, and again, not good or bad, when unions start putting covers over AI cameras in factories because of what it can do, what it can diagnose, and how it can help, there's currently this war between humans, systems, and who we trust and how we trust. And so I think that's what's coming into the limelight. And most people aren't talking about it. We're just dodging around it, not having the real conversation.
I saw the movie. It's Terminator 2, you guys. If you don't have the answers, go to watch Terminator 2. You're going to see the future.
What about Terminator 7?
Right. Was there one? I didn't watch that one.
I'm just going to leave you with a single plug because I know we're tight for time, but you should look up the most recent Apple AirPod patent that they're filing. And it's leveraging AI and it's reading your brain waves, downloading them while you're being served advertisements to see how you'll react, and then taking the micro muscle adjustments in your ear and face to see your change in consciousness, and then taking all of it into their data centers to sell you more stuff. So maybe not Terminators with laser rifles, McDonald's is filing a patent right now to be able to serve you advertisements in your dreams, to reach the same frequency of your brainwaves in a dream state and match those, and to teach you about Big Macs and fries in your slumber. And that's going through right now. It's pretty crazy.
We'll end it on that. You guys, such a cool conversation. Would love to have you guys back. I think we have a verbal agreement that you are going to start providing me the best AI tools for our beta in Omaha, Nebraska, that we can then make available to our whole audience. So we'll keep you guys posted on that project. So cool to have you on. How does somebody reach out to thank you guys for your time? And then what products maybe just quickly could you provide? I mean, you talked at such a high level that everyone's like scared now. There are a lot of things you can do right now to serve our audience. You're already working with me on one of those. So feel free to speak openly, David, and let us know how we can reach out to you.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I would say cast.services is our website, not .com. So CAST and then .services, plural. You could always email Chris@cast.services or David@cast.services. Always happy to talk to you. Obviously, contact us on there. And then as far as services, we do everything from software integrations, customizations, machine learning, machine vision, all these different adaptations and integrations. Most of it's custom development. We also have products for like content development and artificial intelligence, voice, phone calling, and different things that we provide directly to our clients. And so happy to discuss any of those. David, do you want to take that? I've got to jump here in just a second. Anything else that you would say there, though?
No, that's great. Just visit up the website and we'd love to talk, if you're just in the AI field and interested or want to see how these solutions can be leveraged.
Perfect. You guys were awesome. Thank you, Chris, David. Such a pleasure. Such a great conversation. And I think we have hopefully created some massive effect and impact for our listeners. You guys stay tuned to future episodes of the Team Building Podcast. Appreciate you coming on today.